We got one final feature film to talk about, and that
Indeed.
is The Cheat.
The Cheat,
The
which
Cheat is grounded.
it's impossible to watch this movie and not think about Homestar Runner cartoons because it's called The Cheat.
Yeah.
And for anyone unfamiliar, The Cheat is a character in Homestar Runner cartoons.
Yes.
If you don't know what those are, then Google it.
Anyway, this is not Homestar Runner.
No, this is Cecil B. DeMille's film, The Cheat, not
Cheat.
The Cheat. So the I mean, I guess right off the bat, the surviving version of this movie is actually the 1918 re-release, which didn't actually change the film, but changed some of the intertitles and some of the
insert
context.
shots as well.
Yeah. It changes the nationality of one of the lead characters. Originally Hishuru Tori, from Japanese to Burmese, and his name to Haka Arakao.
Yeah.
Because when this movie came out, it got a lot of flack for villainizing a Japanese character. Rightfully so, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. This movie shares a lot of similarities with The Birth of a Nation in some ways, in that it is about a villainous person of color who is threatening to rape a white woman, and then she like tries to escape by threatening suicide.
Yeah. Those two scenes are weirdly very similar.
Yeah. I will say, though it is one of the earliest Asian characters in cinema, I don't think he is necessarily like hyper stereotyped.
No. He's played by a Japanese actor, first of all.
Yeah, I think
already the bar is low, but like already that's like a step above.
Yeah. He's played by oh my god, why did I forget his name?
I'm not sure. I'm probably gonna butcher his name because I haven't looked up pronunciation, but Sesue Hayakawa.
Yeah. Who went on to be nominated for a Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in Bridge on the River Kwai. So yeah, he was like he was already pretty popular in silent films in Japan, and he came over to the US and started being in silent films here. But he's playing a character that is incidentally Asian, right?
Yeah.
Like his Asianness is not the source of villainy in the way that it is in Birth of a Nation. And so I can understand the criticism at the time, but I think with if this film were to come out now, I don't think it actually would be a problem, because Asians can be bad guys too, you know?
I think considering the time it was released in, I do think this movie sort of like has this icky element of kind of a foreigner being this like source of danger, and of like they're gonna take your women sort of thing.
Right.
Like I think there is a similar sort of like reactionary, fearful place that
other.
Yeah, that this movie is sort of playing upon, I guess. That is, not a great look. But he is an actual character.
Yeah.
And it does. I don't think they do a lot to kind of otherize him. I think, but it does. His villainy is definitely played as like, oh yeah, he's like a fucked up dude.
Yeah, he's got interiority. He's like a real person. He's just bad.
Yeah.
The basic story of this, which I gotta say, I like this movie a lot. I thought it was really fun to watch. I thought that the story and the vibe and the cinematography all felt very Hollywood of the 1940s, which I guess,
it's very noirish
yeah,
before that ever existed.
yeah. And it's also like got like a sort of, high society drama in a Breakfast at Tiffany's sort of way too. Like socialites and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
This movie felt to me way ahead of its time, honestly. Just in terms of vibe. And but anyway, the story is that there is a wealthy stockbroker and his wife who is, she lives the high social life, and she's like spending all his money or something. He gets a bill for like $1,500 in 1915 money in dresses. And he's kind of shocked, and he's in the process of investing a bunch of his own money in a stock investment that he is very confident will pay off. And so he's like, hey, my cash flow isn't so good right now, so can you like can it on the dresses for a little while? And she's like, no. If like you get me and the dresses, or you don't get me. Like, I gotta live in high society. They kind of brush it off, and
I've grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle.
Yeah. End quote. They go to like a kind of high society party, and they interact with this guy, either Tori or Arakao.
I mean, Arakao is what it says in all the intertitles, but that's because the only surviving version of the movie is the re-release.
Yeah. And he's kind of sexy, and she's sort of like, oh, who's this guy? This movie was supposedly like sort of a catapulting of Sessue Hayakawa into like a sort of bad boy sex symbol in 1920s or 1910s film Hollywood.
I mean, for like the early part of this movie before he turns into a creep, yeah, he's kind of hot.
Yeah.
And one thing this movie I think does pretty well, especially in the early parts, that really separates it from something like The Birth of a Nation, is it actually succeeds in creating like sexual tension.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's all these scenes of I forgot what the character's name is, but Fanny Ward is the actor playing the wife, of her and Hayakawa interacting. And at first it does seem like, oh, like they know each other through like high society, and like they get along, like spending time together. And like as this sort of early part of the movie goes on, there's more and more tension between them too, and like, oh, they're like going on car rides together and stuff. And then it takes a very dark turn. But I don't know, I can't remember seeing a movie sort of like building up that sort of relationship before this, where it's like, ooh, something's going on there.
Yeah. So at this party, so she in a sort of earlier establishing thing, she's kind of like, as one of her high society operations, she is the treasurer of the local Red Cross group of rich ladies who donate to Red Cross. And there's a guy at this party that they're all at that says, hey, your husband, his stock thing, it's no good. It doesn't make any sense. I think that this stock option is going to blow up. And if you give me some money, I'll double it for you by tomorrow. And
now, anytime anyone ever says, give me your money and I'll double it by tomorrow, that person you will never see that money again.
And indeed she doesn't. But she's like, hey, I want to buy more dresses, and I need that. I want that doubled money. So what do? This guy seems pretty trustworthy, so I'm going to do a little embezzling, and take the money that. So the Red Cross Society has gathered $10,000 to give to Belgian refugees from ripped from the headlines from World War One, and that is the equivalent of $262,000 in today's dollars. And she goes, I'll just, take this out of that safe and give it to the guy, and then come back with $500,000. But the next day he comes back. It didn't work out. She lost all of her money, and she's very distraught. She sees visions of the newspaper articles.
Yeah.
That say society woman steals Red Cross funds, speculates and loses $10,000. Yeah, and then that's when Arakawa gets involved.
Yeah, he sees this as his a moment that he can take advantage of, and so he is sort of like, hey, I'll give you that $10,000 that you stole from the Red Cross, but I'm going to need a little something in return. And he never explicitly says what he wants in return, but it's very implied of just sort of like, he gives her the eyes. And so she's like, well, I guess I have no choice. And so she, what does she do?
Well, she agrees. And he actually starts whispering into her ear all of the horrible things that could happen if the world finds out that she stole all of this money. So she agrees because she has to. She goes back home, and when she does, she finds out that her husband's stock really paid off, and they're just mega rich now.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my god, I can undo this. I can fix this. She says, hey, buddy, I didn't want to tell you, but I lost $10,000 playing bridge. Can I have $10,000? No questions asked. And he's like, sure.
Sure, babe, I got tons. We're loaded now.
I got tons of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Also, boy, oh boy, even now, if you lost 10 grand playing bridge, yikes. In 1915 money, that's insanity. I feel like.
Yeah.
But, high society and all that.
Well, yeah, that's $260,000. So she runs back to Arakawa's place and says hey, here's the $10,000. Can we just undo this? I've got the money. I'll just give it back to you. And he says, no take backsies.
Yeah.
And at that point, she gets really scared. And she...
Well, yeah, he tells one of his manservants to lock the door at that point.
Yeah.
You're he basically kidnaps her at that point. And this is where the movie gets way darker and more intense than I expected it to go. She threatens suicide, to be like, don't touch me or I'll kill myself.
Yeah. And he hands her a knife. He's just like, do it.
Yeah,
you're not gonna do it.
He's like, do it. And she doesn't. And then he brands her with his symbol, which he shows her earlier when they're at his house.
Yeah, in a very phallic way. He's like, hey, look at my brand here, that I use to put my stamp on all of my ivory that I sell.
And he's like, I put this on things to show that I own them. And he grabs her and pulls her hair back from the back of her neck and brands her with his symbol of ownership.
Yeah, it's really dark.
It is, and it's it's rare to see, I think, violence depicted in this, with this level of realism.
Yeah.
For something this early, I think most of the violence tends to be, someone gets shot and really over dramatically reacts to it, or something like that. Whereas this is oh, yikes! This is
it's grody,
very intense.
Yeah. By the way, I was just like, I wonder that whole offering her the knife thing is a little rather dark. This actor Sesue Hayakawa, he like due to, oh my god, I forget exactly why, but there was like due to some kind of success based shame when he was 18 back in Japan, he tried to commit ritual suicide
Whoa.
with a knife. And his dad stopped him. It was his dad being disappointed in him that prompted him to do it.
Holy shit. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
And so got to be kind of heavy for him to just go like, "Hey, here, have a knife. I bet you can't do it," you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so at this point in the movie, she gets hold of a gun. And does he offer a knife or a gun earlier?
He holds up and like when he holds up a knife and says like, if you want to kill yourself, here's a knife, you know. But he does have a gun on him that she's able to grab and then shoot him to get away.
She shoots him kind of in the shoulder. It's a non-fatal gunshot wound, but then she escapes, and we cut to outside where the husband has shown up. He's kind of suspicious that something's going on between his wife and Arako. And there's a great shot where he sees through the sort of the paper door, Japanese style paper door.
Yeah.
Inside, the silhouette of Arako sort of sliding down the side of the door in silhouette, and it leaves a blood stain.
Very cool, very stylish, very cool.
Yeah, it's like it's just a great shot. And then he like smashes through the door. And you know, picks up the gun, and then the authorities arrive, and they're like, "This guy's been shot. You know, who did it?"
Yeah.
And the husband kind of puts two and two together, kind of realizes what has happened, and takes the fall. He's like, I shot him. And so then now the film becomes a courtroom drama about the murder trial, or the attempted murder trial.
And this by the way feels like a very modern depiction of like a crime and courtroom sort of situation. I feel like the last time we saw like a crime and then courtroom was in
the Dreyfus affair.
The Dreyfus affair, yeah. And that was, you know, stylistically leagues behind this.
Yeah. And there's a during the trial, there's another really, really great shot of the husband in his dark jail cell with the light kind of projecting the bars, similar to another shot from Fantomas of like light coming through and like projecting the shape of the bars 4. On the window. Yeah. Very stark, like reminiscent of kind of like film noir aesthetic. And this is this whole courtroom thing, and he's like, they're like, "Why'd you shoot him?" And he's like, "I don't remember. I trust me, I shot him."
It's like, I don't want to say anymore. I just shot him. Just
yeah. But so, I believe the wife talks to him in jail, and what do you remember? What the next beat is?
She visits him in jail, and you know, they kind of fill each other in on the situation, and she's horrified, and when she tells him what happened, he kind of like forgives her. He realizes that she was put in this terrible position, and they're you know, kissing passionately, and then a guard walks up and he like looks into the cage and
no touching.
Like, whoa. Reference.
A lot of those this episode.
Yeah, they can't try a husband and wife for the same crime. And then it kind of fast forwards to the courtroom itself. at first the prosecution goes and they're questioning Hayakawa or the Arakawa about what was happening in the situation, and he was basically, he seemed to be just fine with this plan of send the husband to jail. He didn't seem too fond of him.
Yeah, I think she even goes to him to kind of like plead, like, oh, let's let's put this behind us, like let's figure out a situation where like my husband doesn't get thrown into jail. And he's like, it's out of my hands now. Like if he gets tried for murder or attempted murder, like that's what happens.
Yeah. So he plays along and he names the husband as the guy who shot him. And then it's the defense's turn, and he says nothing. And so the jury comes back and they find him guilty. And the wife is in such a like there's this kind of like really mounting pressure as this false verdict is is about to happen, and you can see the like her getting super stressed out. And when they say guilty, she just jumps up and starts like runs up to the judge, and she like her husband tries to stop her, but she says like, no, it was me, I did it, like I shot him and here's the proof. And she pulls down the back of her dress and you can see the brand that Arakawa put on her, and she explains the whole situation, and they're like, okay, like I guess we're throwing this case out. And all of the people viewing the the whole, when this happens, the whole courtroom erupts in chaos. People jump over the gate and it seemed to try and attack Arakawa. And the judge is like holding him behind him, keeping him safe. But then, yeah, eventually at the end, they drop the case and they walk away, and they get to live together happily ever after, rich and rescued from Arakawa's grasp.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, I think there is definitely some icky racial politics going on in this movie. That I do not care for. But I think despite that, I actually think Setsue Hayakawa's performance comes across really well. Like he's really good in this. Even if he's playing a sort of reductive character at times. He brings it, you know? He does a lot of smoldering, which he's very good at. But it's, you know, he has there's a lot of sort of good subtle acting from him, I think.
Yeah. I think everybody does great acting.
Yeah.
Him and the wife are both amazing.
This, I think, had the best dramatic acting of anything I watched from this year. Yeah. I did sort of, when I was first watching it, I was like, hey, maybe they just cast a Japanese actor because he's so good at smoldering. But there's an intertitle towards the end, which is, I don't have the exact wording of it, but it's something of like East and West shan't meet, or some variation of that sort of idea.
Man, I didn't think of that.
And it, you know, it really kind of drives home this idea of that, like, you know, interracial mixing is like the worst evil, which is like, come on, guys. Come on, 1915. And so that definitely, I was like, oh, okay, this is actually what their intent was, apparently. And so I definitely lost a lot of respect for the movie as like,
I didn't actually notice that. Really.
It's like artistic intent,
oops.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, apart from that, but considering that I didn't notice that. I thought this movie was just captivating.
Yeah.
I thought that the drama was really good. The storytelling was done super well. I
Mhm.
think that a lot of other movies would have been a lot more clunky with the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um. Yeah. And cool vibe, good drama.
Yeah.
I think.
It's almost like the Cecil B. DeMille guy is going places. This
I
kid.
wonder if anything will be named after him.
Yeah.
Um. This movie got remade twice. I think one time in 1922, something like that. Another
Mm.
silent film that is lost, and then it was made, and that used the Japanese actor again, and then it was remade again in 1931 as a talkie, and they made him white. So it's a
Hmm.
story that doesn't really, matter race
Yeah.
wise.
No,
Um.
it doesn't.
Uh. So there's that at least.
Hmm.
A lot of
It'd be
racism this episode.
yeah.